Welcome to your Get That Nugget for GCSE English Literature. Today we're going to be concentrating on giving you a framework for analysing quotations to help support the structure of your paragraphs and ensure that you are meeting all of the assessment objectives. Today the particular focus is on an Inspector Goole, and we're going to be looking at the character of the inspector. This session is to complement your lessons with your teachers and not to replace them in any way. So an Inspector Goole, one of the major characters that we would need to look at is Inspector Goole, and we first meet him partway into Act 1. The family are enjoying a lovely dinner to celebrate Gerald and Sheila's engagement, and suddenly a policeman is at the door. Now, from the very outset, we are shown that Inspector Goole is somewhat different. He is not what the Birlings are expecting, and he doesn't talk to them in a way that they expect. This is because as middle to upper class people, they would expect to be respected. They would expect people to treat them with a certain amount of deference, so feel lesser than them and treat them like they're superior. And so the first quotation we're going to look at is really very straightforward, and it is his introduction of himself. So if we look at how the inspector is presented, he is in no way apologetic. He is in no way inferior to the Birlings. He speaks them very bluntly. He uses short sentences. And so AO1, the inspector is confident and abrupt. The reason we know this is twofold. One, we are looking at simple sentences, and two, we are looking at the word ghoul. Okay, this is close to the idea of a ghoul or a ghost. Now, where we need to be really careful is we're not suggesting that Inspector Goole is a ghost, but we are suggesting, and this is where we get to AO3, that he is supernatural. Now, supernatural does not mean ghost. Supernatural does not mean werewolf. Supernatural means above nature or not natural, which is why he comes across as confident and abrupt when he shouldn't do, because he is not part of that society. He is not part of that universe. The next quotation we're going to look at, again, the inspector being really forthright, the inspector being really confident when talking to the Birlings. It's better to ask for the earth than to take it. Now, this quotation shows him as being critical of the Birlings. The implied meaning there is that the Birlings have taken the earth. The Birlings do have everything. And by the Birlings, we mean the capitalists. So, AO1, he is critical of society. He is quite rude to the Birlings. We get this in two ways. So we have the implied meaning, that the capitalists take all, and we have the use of the metaphor take the earth, as in take everything, even though you have no right to it. When we get to AO3, we can then relate that to Priestley's ideas and ideals about society, in as far as the socialist ideology of the inspector would suggest that the world should be shared and that people should have a right to question their position in the world and to question what they are being given. Finally, after he has spoken to all of the family, after he has tried to make them realise their part in Eva Smith's death, after he has tried to make them feel guilty for what they've done, and it's only really Eric and Sheila who have understood the lesson, he says that if they don't learn their lesson now, it will be taught in fire and blood and anguish. So the inspector here is being shown as knowledgeable, strong, unchanging. He is impatient for the Birlings to learn. He is cross, angry, irritated that they aren't learning. And he is leaving them with a warning about what will happen if they don't change their ways. So AO2, the words fire, blood, anguish, they all suggest horror to come. And they also refer back to the wars. Okay, so we have the use of these words which suggest torment, torture, pain, agony, upset. And in terms of AO3, they remind us of the wars that have come. They remind us of the world as it is then and what we are just coming out of. And therefore, that reference to war suggests that if we don't change, the world as it is will be at war again. So it is essentially a prediction. It is an idea that if we don't change the world, if the world does not become more equal, if the world does not become more caring, if we do not take more social responsibility, then we will repeat what has come before. So again, the inspector's words mirror the structure of the play, because he is suggesting if we don't learn our lessons, then we are going to be doomed to repeat the same mistakes again. So the way we can use this to write a response to how is the inspector shown. So the inspector is shown to be knowledgeable and unchanging in his views. When Priestley suggests that we will be taught a lesson in fire and blood, not only does that predict World War I, as the play is set in 1912, but also suggests that without change, the world will be a living hell. I know that sounds quite emotive. However, his use of the words blood and hell, blood and fire, suggests that. So Priestley's reference to the war shows the audience that the world needs to change or repeat its mistakes. So we have done AO 1, 2 and 3 there. The structure of that paragraph becomes really easy because we've unpicked it in that way. And what you now need to do, using the quotations that we have looked at, is to answer the question, how does Priestley use the inspector to promote his ideals? So we've talked about the fact that Priestley's ideals are mirrored in the inspector and are about social responsibility. So think about Priestley's message and the impact that the inspector has on characters.